I'm sure you've heard the phrase, less is more. This idea of simplicity can apply to a lot of things, but I really love it when we can associate it with food. Specifically, a recipe as simple as Johnnycakes. Johnnycakes are a perfect example of a less is more meal. We're talking only a couple of ingredients and one pan. But the results are fantastic. Little cornmeal patties that are crunchy on the outside, soft within, and totally snackable for a variety of meals and occasions. By the end of this video, you'll know all about Johnnycakes and how to make them quickly and easily. Hello and welcome to I Want to Cook. My name is Chef Matt and this channel is all about helping you be a better cook. And after watching today's episode, yes, you are going to be a Johnny Cake master because today we are making Johnnycakes. Which brings us to the first question you might be asking, what are Johnnycakes? So put simply, Johnnycakes are just little cornmeal cakes that are sizzled up in a skillet or on a griddle, sort of like flatbread or griddle cakes. You can kind of think of them as pancakes, but instead of being made out of wheat flour, well, they're made out of this stuff, cornmeal. But Johnnycakes are even simpler than pancakes. For one thing, there's fewer ingredients. Johnnycakes are made simply from cornmeal, some water and salt, perhaps some sugar as well, but we're talking just a handful of ingredients. But moreover, there's no leavening agent. That means there's no baking powder or baking soda, so that unlike pancakes, they don't necessarily rise, but they are nice griddled cakes that are absolutely delicious. And good news if you're gluten-free like me, because Johnnycakes are made with cornmeal, that means they are gluten-free or at least gluten-friendly. If you are celiac and you really need to watch out for gluten, you want to make sure to check the box of the cornmeal you're using. Some are processed on the same lines that also process wheat, so you want to make sure that you're not getting any gluten there. And there are some specific gluten-free cornmeals if you really need to watch it. Now a quick bit of history on Johnnycakes before we actually get into making them, and I promise it's quick and easy. Let's talk about the spelling, because you might see them as Johnnycakes, one word, Johnnycakes, two words. You might also see them called Shawnycakes, Johnny Bread, or Journey Cakes. With all those different names, it probably comes as no surprise that Johnnycakes have been around for a while. Actually, a long while. We're talking hundreds of years. Johnnycakes are believed to have originated in America in the 1700s, and who knows, they might even go farther back than that. But they are believed to predate even the pancake. Today, Johnnycakes are still popular in America and also the Caribbean. In fact, the first time I had a Johnnycake was in St. Martin. Now, as I've mentioned, the main ingredient of Johnnycakes is cornmeal, and well, that means that it's really economical. Johnnycakes don't cost much to make because cornmeal doesn't cost much to buy. Now, Johnnycakes can be eaten for a variety of meals. They can be eaten for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or as a side, and you can tailor them. You can add more sugar if you want it sweeter. You can add herbs and spices if you want savory. Johnnycakes are highly adaptable to whatever you want. And as for cooking Johnnycakes, you really only need one pan. I like to use just a basic pan like this. This is stainless steel, but you could also use a non-stick pan. You could use a cast iron pan, basically whatever you want. When I'm making a big batch of Johnnycakes, I use something like this, a griddle. This sits over two burners and it allows for a lot of Johnnycakes to be made at once. But basically, whatever pan you have, you can probably make Johnnycakes in it. So let's make some Johnnycakes right now, and the first thing we're gonna do is boil some water. And yes, I'm still putting this Hayden kettle to good use. This is the one that I found at the thrift shop a while back. I made a whole video on it. and it works well for this application. I use it a few times a day. To make the batter for Johnnycakes, we only need about a 1-to-1 ratio of cornmeal to boiling water. I've measured out 2 cups of cornmeal here, so I'm going to put this right into our bowl, and then we've got 2 cups of boiling water. And we are just going to slowly whisk this in, just like this. It doesn't need to be super exact, and you can even play with the ratios a bit to get the mixture you want. But basically you want something that looks kind of like wet sand. So we are just going to mix this in, make sure all of that is incorporated here. And then finally, we can't forget our salt. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt here, just like this. And then I like to add a bit of sugar to my Johnnycakes. Even when I do savory ones, I like to add a little bit of sugar. So we're going to add a couple teaspoons of sugar as well. And then we are just going to whisk this all together. And that's it. We just made our Johnnycake batter. How easy was that? Now, we're not going to plop this into a pan right away. We're actually going to let this sit for about 10 minutes, let it get happy together, and just kind of absorb that water. And just like that, we have a platter of Johnnycakes. Don't these look fantastic? This only took about 20 minutes. And here's our results. Look at that, this beautiful cornmeal patty. Now you can serve this with basically whatever you want, as I said, but I like some maple syrup for a nice sweet approach. Just look at that. Doesn't that look just fantastic? That crunch, it is so crunchy on the outside, yet soft within, dipped in that maple syrup. These are just amazing. So that's how to quickly and easily make Johnnycakes. Now again, I want you to experiment with the batter. Again, it's going to be about a 1-to-1 ratio, but if you want maybe a chunkier, more like a hefty Johnnycake, you can use a little bit less water. If you want something a little bit on the mushier side, you can use more water, but just experiment. That's part of the fun. I hope you try this out. Let me know what you think. I think you're really going to enjoy Johnnycakes. Okay, trivia time. Last week I asked you to identify what this thing is, and no, it's not for painting. This is indeed a double pastry roller, and several of you got this right. Now, unlike a traditional rolling pin, this is obviously smaller, and this allows you to maybe get into a pan to roll out dough or roll it out in confined places. So that is indeed the correct answer to last week's trivia question. Congratulations to everybody who got that correct. For this week's culinary tool trivia, boy, this is something very small, but very important. What could this thing be? Again, a very small but important device. If you know what this is, or you have a guess, put it in the comments below, and I will of course let you know the correct answer in the next episode. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Until next time, I hope you want to cook.